Hello and welcome to the Free IP Fandom. I'm your host, Felix Chaplin, and today I have the pleasure of presenting an interview I conducted with an Oz historian who had a hand in reviving L. Frank Baum's 1903 Wizard of Oz musical Extravaganza and the 1905 follow-up musical The Woggle Bug. From the Offsite Connecticut Theater, it is with great pleasure that I introduce today's guest, T-Craft. Hey, how's it going?
Hello, it's doing good. That one time of the season where it's like 5 o'clock and it's pitch black darkness,
So, you want to say a little bit about what you do on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, YouTube channel and in person as well. I'm the artistic director at Offsite Connecticut Theater. We have a part of it. It's like I don't know what the legal or proper term is, but it's a part of us where we revive old shows from 1800s to the early 1900s, and it's called Golden Age Theatrics, and we revive the first two Oz musicals with it. Now, Offsite Connecticut Theater, it's in Connecticut, hence the name, but that's where we've performed all the Oz musicals.
What got you interested in these old plays?
Well, I was an Oz fan since very younger. I grew up on the book, not the movie, and I think I first discovered it through Sheet Music Singer among some Oz friends I had, because I was writing a musical version of The Wizard of Oz, which got turned into a movie on YouTube, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a Psych rock movie, and in that, we used 3 songs from Paul Tatijan's from the 1902, The Garnita Gates, The Scarecrow Song, and When We Get What's A-Comin' to Us. And then I was exposed to all of it, including the Woggle Bug, the TikTok Man of Oz, and going far off to the Maid of Balzura, or Balzura? The other Baum musical. So I got talking to a bunch of Oz friends, and I was saying how much I fell in love with the Woggle Bug. Like I've said, again, the Woggle Bug's kind of become like a child of mine, as how much I love this show, and it means a lot to me. So I decided to revive it, and I announced it before I even had a script. So that was the toughest part on both of these revivals, was finding materials. Even the Woggle Bug that's currently on YouTube on the Offsite Connecticut Theater YouTube channel, it's inaccurate in some places. I will admit that I went off newspaper articles to fill in the blanks. I had a partial script. Tell you one thing I was happy about was that the Library of Congress website had all the sheet music available. And then I found out there was a book that had already published all the sheet music, so I didn't need to buy Hungry Tiger Press. And that was one thing a lot of people questioned me about, was, did you get the sheet music from Hungry Tiger Press? And I say, no, I didn't know that book existed until rehearsals. In fact, it didn't come in till I think we were about like 4 rehearsals into the show. But that was helpful because that had some original programs, and so I was able to make a few changes in the edit based on that. Though, since then, I have gotten my hands on original Woggle Bug script and see what I got wrong, and it's being retooled, reworked, and hopefully I'm thinking maybe like a staged reading or like a Zoom reading or something like that, just so people have it, and so it'll be on YouTube for free, and so everyone can see it, and then eventually we'll get it staged. It's just our theater company has a 2-year rule between doing shows again, so Woggle Bug probably 2026 maybe we'll get a revival. And what I announced is after I announced Woggle Bug, I wanted to do the rest of the Oz musicals that year. We didn't get the TikTok, unfortunately, but we did get to the 1903 Oz musical, sometime credited as the 1902, but we based off the Broadway version. And that was a chore, that script. In fact, I'm working on getting a version of that script published with the revisions I made and all the different versions of the script, except the 1901 draft, because I don't think that can be reformed in one book. So it can be either published or used for other companies to do the show.
Do you also have a background in music? Did you play a part in playing some of the songs on the piano or something for the productions?
All the music tracks were brand new. It was canned. They even have a live orchestra, unfortunately. Again, we're a small theater company. Our budgets are low, so we can't afford the 27-piece orchestra that this show needs. So all of it was done through MIDI. And so I could do the multiple orchestra tracks, multiple pieces, and have it all as one MP3, which can be played throughout the speakers in the theater. So yeah, all the tracks were made by me.
I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly or not, but in the 1903 musical video, the overture, wasn't that the original recording from 1902, the acoustic recording?
Yes, we did. The style I was going for was that the whole thing was kind of like a cylinder recording. So we used some original cylinder recordings. In fact, I used bits and pieces of it, like down on the Brandywine. That one also has some of the original cylinder recording pieces in it. But yeah, that was the whole thing about it. Unfortunately, in my set design, there was supposed to be on the stage like the whole stage is supposed to be set up as a big cylinder. But unfortunately, we had to move theaters because the theater we were going to do it in got flooded. So all my set designs had to be redone. And that's why you see these projections in the video, which the projections were supposed to be used they were supposed to have a big screen on the left of the stage. But when we had to move locations, the projections had to be scrapped. So when I made the video, I decided to put the projections in. And that's why you see the projections in the video.
You want to say a bit about the musical that you made of The Wizard of Oz?
My Wizard of Oz musical? Sure. Gosh, 5 years ago. I was bored one night, and so I sat down at a piano and just started tinkering away, and I made, I think, 23 tracks for an Oz musical. Now, only one of those tracks is still in the show, but it took me over 5 years to write it, basically. I joined with Pete Walsh. I wrote some of the music, and he wrote some of the music, and we decided to go for an Oz that had never been attempted, at least as far as my knowledge, which was to make Oz as a psychedelic rock concert, which, trust me when I say there was backlash when I announced this, because people didn't want something new, I guess. But yeah, even though I'm into such these classic stuff, when I write, I'm more keen to write like rock or punk rock. That's what my style really is when I write. And so you can hear that a lot. And then it was during COVID. We couldn't get the thing staged, mainly because it was too tech heavy. And we decided to adapt it into like a movie for YouTube. And so my goal was to do it in 1 year. And we did. And that was really crazy because we were doing it at the same time. We were doing these Oz revivals. So when I was not working on the Oz revivals, I was working on the movie, doing all the edited done. But it got posted, I think it was supposed to be August 1st, but I was out of town at that point, so I had to publish it before I was. I'm pretty sure if you look on most of the promotion before we announced the official date, I said August. But yeah, the full film is on YouTube under the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a psych rock movie channel. Full thing's up there. It's been very successful so far. We've had a lot of people help out, and hopefully, I think this might be my announcement. We're either gonna get a sequel made or a prequel to the film. I have a book written of a prequel to this version of Oz, and either that's gonna be published or it's gonna become a movie, or we'll do a movie based on the Marvelous Land of Oz. So you're the first person to hear this, I'll tell you that.
All right. Well, you said that you already had the book written, so at least you're not making the announcement before you have anything at all, like with the 1903 musical.
No, thankfully this time. I also have most of the Marvelous Land musical written. I just need to get music to the lyrics at the moment. But yeah, do you want me to talk about a little of like the stage aspect of doing these musicals?
Yeah, sure. Talk about whatever you want. So get to know about you and what you do with public domain works.
Sure. Well, that's one of the nicest things about these work is that they're public domain, and so I don't have to pay a single royalty fee. That was the nice thing about our last season was, normally see this, we have to spend a bunch of money on licensing. That year, all we had to spend was on costumes and sets and getting a theater. So it really, for a small theater, doing a show that is like popular and will attract a crowd is good. But Woggle Bug was our hardest sell because only the Oz fans and the cast knew what this show was. Like I know in the marketing, I did not the whole show, but videos of the songs and of the plot instead of just putting up a poster because no one would know. So I had to put up these videos basically saying what the plot was. But that was a fun show. So I in that one played Tip and, spoiler alert, Ozma and Prissy Pring, and we had a wonderful cast of different ages, different races, different genders. It was a wonderful cast, and we had two of our regulars, Ray Johnson, who also appeared in my Psychic Rock movie, as well as Deborah O'Connell, who appeared in Psych Rock and both musicals. And so they were lovely to work with. But yeah, that show, we're working with a small stage, so you can't get all the big elaborate set pieces you want. But that show had a lot of scene changes. Thankfully, not as much costume changes. Though, I'll tell you this, the costume change from Tip to Ozma was brutal. And 2 performances, I almost missed the cue. One of them was the one we were recording. I almost missed the cue for Ozma's quick change.
Maybe in the future you could do a double-sided costume. So you take it off, flip it inside out, and then put it back on. Well, Well, I don't know how intricate the costume was because I didn't watch that far in the Woggle Bug yet.
Ozma, it was like a Roman toga. I think we went out to costume shop and trying to find the closest thing we could find to what Ozma looked like in the books, and that was the closest thing we got. We didn't make her iconic crown because we had this crown that got used. It's like one of those things where theater has like one prop every show you use. It's like you need a crown, you just use this crown. That was what it was. So, but if I had the time and the money, I would have made an Ozma crown because that would have been so much fun to wear that. Though that probably would have made the costume change even worst. Staging. The one interesting thing about a theater is it has theater. The seats are in the front of the stage and on the left side of the stage, and so you can't have like characters look directly out into the audience. You always have to like tilt them sideways a little bit to face both audiences. That was our major thing about staging both of these shows, was making sure it was open, and that's why there's sometimes characters have their backs to the audience because the other part of the audience can see them. So it's one of those things where you have to make sure, all right, what part of the audience gets to see what, and what part of the audience gets to see the stuff that's important. So you always have to stage it so the important stuff's in front and the less important stuff's in the back. So the props were also one of our hardest part with that show because, you know, I'll tell you one thing that was super great. I went to Goodwill and I found this little wooden reindeer and I just ripped off the antlers and it became our sawhorse. Easiest thing ever, and it was like $5. So I'll tell you, Goodwill, that's your friend because a lot of our backdrops for Woggle Bug were from Goodwill. And then I also wanted to make it look like it was John O'Neill's illustrations. So our backdrops from the shows are actually illustrations from John O'Neill's books, just in Photoshop removing the characters from them. I guess I'll move on to Wizard of Oz then. Casting that was hard because I knew we probably weren't going to get more than 10 people, which we got 8, so I was right. So the doubling on that show was a nightmare. I think I played 6 roles total, and I probably had 20 scene changes, 20 costume changes in just like the first act alone. It was so hard, but all the cast, such a joy to work with. And of course, because of scheduling, we only had a week to put this show on. And so that's why it's a staged reading instead of a full. But yeah, I'm checking the program again. Who did I play? I played Dorothy, Trixie Trifle, one of the Munchkins, one of the Cooks, and an Emerald City person. Yeah, that's it.
You're kind of following in the footsteps of what was the actor's name? Frank Morgan in the 1939 movie. He was the psychic in the beginning, the guardian of the gate, the other doorman guy, and the Wizard of Oz, and he was also the guy driving the carriage. But still, he did such a good job, you couldn't even really tell that it was the same person every time.
Trust me, it took till recently to realize he was all those different parts. It's so convincing. Yeah, but one of the hardest things about the show was trying to keep my accent straight, because I have to have... We did a lot of research into what kind of accent the actress playing Dorothy would have, and we determined that a southern accent would have been what probably was on stage in the 1903. And I talked with multiple Oz historians about this, and they seem to agree on the southern accent. While I'm doing this, I have to shout out Constantine Graham and Jane Albright. So helpful in getting materials. Like, they gave me like some original scripts. That's how I got the Carrie Berry sheet music through that. And one of my goals with the music was not to do what previous revivals of this had done. Like Constantine Graham's revival, he also revived it. He did basically all the detergent music, and that's it. Then there was the big revival in Canton, was it Colorado or Ohio?
Ohio, yeah. I remember seeing like promotional videos and stuff for it.
That one, and that was big. That had a cast of 50 and a 27-piece orchestra. Huge. But what they did is, back in the day, there was a licensable version of the script. Like, after the tours had all ended, Thames Whitmark, who, funny enough, now owns the rights to the MGM movie for stage, they owned the licensing rights. And their script is basically what was performed in Canton. What I did is I took elements of the script, and I wanted to include as many songs from all the shows as I could, and from all the different versions of the show. So that's why Mr. Dooley is in there, and then we have stuff from like some of the later revivals, like Pocahontas was in there, The Sweetest Girl in Dixie, down the Brandywine, which will place in Michigan, because that's a lost song. But yeah, and then I also added some, I wouldn't say new scenes, but like I switched some stuff up. So some scenes that would have gone here in the original revival have now been moved there and so forth, mainly for the storyline and also because you're adapting it for a modern audience. And that's why we did have to, cut some stuff that isn't like appropriate for today's audiences. So all like the coon numbers are gone. The Pocahontas song, she's like, the way she's referred to in that original song was not the way we should refer to a Native American person. Some of those lyrics got changed. Must You, that was another one. The first lyric of that is basically implying that your wife's an object. So that one got changed a little bit, which I know is something that I know a lot of people don't agree with, but I feel needs to be done with these type of musicals. And that's why certain songs weren't chosen to be put in here. Like The Witch Behind the Moon, or The Bullfrog and the Coon, or, some of those songs with there. Though the show is still kind of outdated by today's terminology. Because, Dorsey being basically becoming a submissive housewife at the end of the show, but there's nothing more you can do about that, because that, you'd have to rewrite the entire Act 3 and Act 2 and Act 1 and basically all of Dorsey's character to get rid of that.
Kind of a ship of Theseus kind of situation.
Yeah, there was some stuff that, it needed to be removed if you don't want to offend everyone in the audience. Because, we had a diverse audience and diverse cast. So we don't want people to feel uncomfortable performing and uncomfortable seeing work. Sometimes you have to, adapt works for the time. Like Woggle Bug, there was a blackface character in Woggle Bug called Aunt Diana. There is a major plot hole in Woggle Bug because she got cut, but no way you could even attempt to adapt her, even if you changed her role, even if you made her like a white kitchen maid. That's one thing. I know even productions of Woggle Bug back in the 80s cut her out. So 80s and some of the early revivals of this, she was gone immediately after the first run.
Well, a lot of these old things from the early 1900s just aged like milk, really.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm working on with my new script, is my goal is to try and include all the original songs, just because the music, that's one of the sad things about the music. The music is really good, and it sucks that it has very awful lyrics to go with such nice music. So my script that I'm working on, what I'm doing is I'm going to include the original lyrics at the end of the script for like a historical purpose. But then I'm also going to offer a revised version of the lyrics if they want to present them. My goal with the script is not to force you into presenting them. I'm going to list all the songs that would have went in those options, and then all the songs that got interchanged into it, and then let like each production choose which songs they want to do. That's my goal. Because the thing about, there's only one version of the 1903 that you can license right now, and it is basically a Taylor Whitmark script, but it forces you to do the songs. And that version is also, it still includes a lot of the offensive stuff. So old words, I think the N-word is in that script too. I can't confirm, I haven't read it. I don't want to say who's doing it, because I don't want any hate to be sent out to that person who's doing it. But, yeah, that's my goal with the new script, is that and staging TikTok are my big two plans for the future with this, basically. And possibly a licensable version of Woggle Bug once that. But again, I'm also retooling Woggle Bug, so, characters like Aunt Diana, I may see if she can be redone again, see if she could be added back into the plot.
Or she could possibly be played by an actual black woman, maybe.
We'll see. All her dialogue would probably have to be not broken English. Let's just say that.
So it's like kind of like the stereotypical, like how you would see in all the old coon songs, like, ain't that just the bestest band what am, oh honey, like that.
Yeah, basically like that.
Like, this obviously required a lot of research on your part. Usually when you go on Wikipedia or something and you find information about a movie, like an article about a movie or a play or something, you might be able to find, like, if it's old enough, you'll be able to find, like, a PDF version of a script or, like, a link to the movie or something. And when I tried researching the 1902 musical myself a few years ago, I found a script on Wikipedia, but I couldn't find, like, the sheet music for the songs at the time. But this is before I knew about Sheet Music Singer and before I actually helped out with that channel myself, too.
That one on Wikipedia is the one that the Library of Congress has, and it's based on the Tams Whitmark script, but it's not the Tams Whitmark script. It's like a typed version of it. It's probably a licensable version of the script is what it is. It's not like an official, like, one that was used. So yeah, it is. It's weird, and it's missing a lot also, because I know that version also got published as like a book, but like it is not good. The one, if you search up 1903 Oz on Amazon, you'll find this book I'm talking about, and it's not good. I don't recommend. The book I do recommend is Before the Rainbow, if you want to know a lot about more that I can go in depth of the Oz early musicals. With at least the first one, it barely touches on the Woggle Bug and all that. So, well, the research, I talked a little bit about the research for Woggle Bug and how it's the Library of Congress and all that happened, but it was basically that. Newspaper articles, pieces and pieces of the script, reviews of the time, and the songs from Library of Congress. For Oz, I started off with that script from, I think that's Library of Congress too. That's their script they have, and that's where it worked off from. And of course, I had to collect a bunch of the sheet music, either going out to auctions or eBay and buying the actual sheet music. I have a bunch of that early sheet music, and then it was also going through finding old programs. The nice thing is I went through a lot of auction histories, like records of auctions, and they have like pictures of the programs, and I went through and I saw the song list. I have a whole document that's just the song lists of different shows, trying to find, which ones were most used, which mainly were the Tejan score for the first half, and then the Tejan score eventually just got wiped and kept getting removed. Then was going through all that, and then it was, alright, I have a name of the song, now I need to find the sheet music. And thankfully I had some people who helped me out, like Michael Booth and Constantine Graham. Who Constantine Graham also revived the show before, as I mentioned. But he gave me the sheet music for some of the songs for that, and some of them included songs like Carrie Berry and the Connemara Christening, which are songs that I didn't even know the sheet music existed. In fact, I used other songs put in those places and like kind of rewrote the lyrics to try and match. But then when I got those songs, I'm like, well, sorry, I scrapped those and I put those into the proper places they should have been. And so it was nice having that. And even then, I'm still finding sheet music for songs like that. Like Honey My Sweet, I finally just got a copy of that one, which people didn't even know that one existed. I didn't even know that one existed. I knew it got performed. And there are songs that are unfortunately lost to time. Like The Tale of the Red Shirt, Yankee Doodle Girl, the Spanish song The Scarecrow Sings in the Dance of All Nations. Stuff like that is all gone. And then once I had my confirmed list of the sheet music I have, I went through and I listened to all of them. Now Sheet Music Singer was so helpful in this point where I can just, instead of having to go to a piano, play them, or go to a MIDI and type up the notes one by one, I could just listen to them through Sheet Music Singer. Though, because I did everything in MIDI, some songs which I don't think have MIDIs had to be made MIDIs. Like the whole pantomime opening. And it was another thing where also trying to find the sheet music that isn't republished and copyrighted. Because I know some sheet music songs have been rearranged and then cleaned up into beautiful sheet music, but all that's copyrighted. Like I have early Paul Tejan's scanned copies of the actual notes he wrote the show with, which gave force to the nickname Paul Jenkins because the sheet music's all janked up and messy. That this was a nickname I gave him when I was creating the MIDIs for all the songs, because, as much as I love Paul Tejan's work, his handwriting is so messy and so ugly. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was stuff like that, and then it was going through and figuring out, okay, which one do I want to use? There were ones that had to be in there, like Niccolo's Piccolo, the Scarecrow song, the Traveler and the Pie, all songs like that. Those had to be included, because those are the ones, I guess people would recognize. And of course, Love is Love and When You Love, Love, Love. But then there were songs which I had to go through and think about, like 'Twas enough to make a Perfect Lady mad. Almost was included. In fact, it got cut during rehearsals. What else we had? We had The Sweetest Girl and Dixie, which got added in rehearsals. That was originally Honey My Sweet. It was stuff like that, because there's so many songs for like the same placement in like the script. You just gotta figure out which one goes which. And then you also have to figure out how many verses you include. Like Mr. Dooley, I'm not gonna include all, I think it was like 7 or 8 verses. Not gonna include all that, which, you know, you gotta shorten some of these songs to make sure your thing doesn't run over 4 hours. The thing only ran 3 hours, thankfully. The video only runs 2 hours, but when it's all together, it is long and long. But yeah, it was that, and then it was figuring out, because we only had an 8-person cast, it was figuring out the doubling. If like I need to have all 3 characters on stage at once, but all 3 characters play by the same person, okay, that needs to go. And it was stuff like that, just figuring out the doubling, which really, in terms of dialogue wise, we cut basically nothing. It was some jokes that didn't land today or offensive. Some of that got removed. And then some of it was like new jokes by me, which really it's just new puns. And the line, when the Wizard of Oz gets shot, she pulled a pistol from her knickers. And then there was stuff like removing the bombs, and I probably should have removed the guns on my part. So it's stuff like that in my book that I'm working on, the script. I've included like my version of it, where this is what I did, and then I include the original version that you include, and then I've included ones like, there's one that has a bombless version, and then there's one that has a gunless version, and all that. So, again, that's one of our things.
Can you tell us where we can find you online?
Check out my YouTube channel, both Offsite Connecticut Theater and The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a psych rock musical. You can also find me at Ike Studios, that YouTube channel. And when my book comes out, I hope y'all get it. I mean, it's going to be super great.
That's all the questions I have for you. Thanks for being on the show.
It's been such a pleasure being on this show, and subscribe. Not only to me, but to this channel as well. Subscribe.
And that's all the time we have for today's episode. Be sure to check out T-Craft's socials and productions of the Oz musicals, which will be linked in the description. While you're down there, don't forget to give this video a like, leave a comment, share this with your friends, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss what's next from It's Free IP.